I breathe tourism. I live and breathe tourism.
Yeah, you bleed
Yeah,
if they were ever to cut you in half, you would be bleeding.
yeah,
Tourism
yeah,
siguro, no?
yeah. I agree.
Yeah. But what about you, though? Obviously, an expert within the industry. How do you... Hello, mabuhay. Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Ako po si Ira Lehman, ang owner and founder ng philcomuk.com website. Ang philcomuk.com po ay isang online directory ng mga Filipino events, businesses, at organizations dito po sa United Kingdom. Kung kayo po ay isang Filipino business owner or community leader with an organization or an event organizer, I'd like to invite you to add your listing to the website for free. At ngayon, I can't believe it, but we are actually on the 5th episode na of Philcom Features. And today, lahat naman kasi po ng mga guests ko is special, but today we have a particularly special guest. He is the Tourism Attaché to the United Kingdom for the Department of Tourism dito po sa London. And I have a feeling na we might actually talk about travel. Konti lang siguro. Feeling ko lang, we might end up talking about travel, but we'll see how that goes, no? So, and I'm really very excited to have him here with us today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our 5th guest, Mr. Gerard Panga. Hello.
Hi everyone. Hi Ira, and glad to be part of this conversation with you for the Philippine director here in the United Kingdom.
Thanks, Gerry. Thank you so much for making the time. And I think it's a miracle that you actually found some time to spend with me because I'm sure busy ka. So really appreciate you making the time. And thank you so much for joining us today. Um, okay, so let's start off with your role. So you work as a tourism attaché for the Department of Tourism dito sa London, no? Um, when did you take on that role pala? When did you move to the UK?
Yes, I was deployed here in February 2016. So effectively, I'm already on my fifth year
A
plus 1 month.
month.
Yeah, so almost 6 months in
Wow.
February 2022.
Oh, diba? So fifth year na, and today's our 5th episode. So I think 5 is our lucky number today.
Yes.
But curious lang ako. So apologies in advance because my background is actually corporate and I have no idea about tourism. I mean, of course, I travel. I'm a traveler, but yung industry mismo, I have no idea. So I'll just have to ask you, yung tourism attaché ba? Um, what does that role entail with regards to what you do for the DOT?
Yes. Essentially, we are the functioning DOT here in the overseas office. So, the Department of Tourism has an overseas pool of officers who are deployed to key source markets around the world. So, one of which, in fact, the most important market is London, is the UK. So, being the top source market for travel of Europeans to the Philippines. So, we go by what we have also in the Department of Foreign Affairs or the embassies around the world. We have a set of a pool of professional marketeers who went through the process, rigid process systems to be able to make it to this pool. So we go on a tour of duty. So like in my case, I was initially deployed to Taiwan, then followed
Ooh.
by Shanghai in China, and then for my third posting, I'm here in London, United Kingdom. So we normally go by 6 year rotation. So we
Mm-hmm.
are deployed for 6 years, then go back to the
Mm-hmm.
head office for residency or what we call retooling. You
Mm-hmm.
get to learn again, the products and the policies, and then you are redeployed again. Usually
All
within
right.
1 to 2 to 3 years.
So you actually get to go back to the home country for a couple of years, 2 or 3, and then get redeployed again.
Yes.
Is that usually how that works? And that's quite
Yes.
interesting na you mentioned na actually yung first deployment mo was in Taiwan and then
Yes.
Shanghai, 'di ba?
Yes.
And then obviously iba yung demographics dun sa China and sa Taiwan. And then you have to move from Asia, so China, 'di ba, to the UK or Europe. Um that's quite a big jump, I'd say, but I don't know. I want to hear your your thoughts on that. Coming into the UK, what would you say were the biggest differences that you observed after having worked in China and Taiwan? Tapos dito, you arrived here in the UK, and then you have to kind of like, I guess, find the right angle to push the Philippine tourism now with the different type of demographics. How was that for you? What
Yeah.
were your main observations?
Well, first I'd like to explain on the functions. The marketing
Yeah.
functions are relatively the same. And when you deal with marketing, you talk about the markets, your audience, the consumers, and then the partners, the trade partners, the
Mm,
media, the corporate accounts, and then the means to reach efficiently the market, the platform. So basically, it's a big difference already, comparing short haul markets compared to
yeah,
long haul
like
markets like
you're
the
talking about
Europeans.
the travel time.
Yeah, not
Mm,
only the travel time but the travel preparation. Normally, the short haul markets they decide quicker. They prepare shorter time to make good of their travel. But the Europeans, for example, they take months to prepare for their travel, and then even the decision process is different. And of course, when you talk about demographics, they stay longer and even pay more, spend more as they stay for an average of 12 nights to 20 nights.
yeah,
And
makes sense.
even with the preferences, the Europeans would tend to go to places that are off the beaten track, or places which are
Yung mga
away
hindi
from
sikat.
commercial destinations. And of course,
Correct,
they
yeah.
also do some city breaks. But for the Brits going to the UK, the main draw or the main motivation um, includes beach holidays, soft adventure,
Mm-hmm.
cultural immersion,
Mm-hmm.
responsible travel or conscientious travel,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And the big
Mm,
draw is also is scuba diving, because as you know, we are the top destination for scuba diving in the world.
yeah. We
Yes.
have a few awarded spots. Yung UNICEF ba yun, yung nagbibigay ng award for the top diving
We
sites.
have
There's a
different
body, right?
award-giving bodies, but here in the
Uh-uh.
UK, in London, there's the World Travel Awards, and
Mm-hmm.
last year, we actually won or was awarded by global, based on global votes, for being the world's leading dive destination for Philippines, and
Mm.
also for having the world's leading tourist attraction for Intramuros.
Intramuros,
Yes.
really? Oh, wow. Do you know who we were up against for the diving sites? Who were the other contenders?
Well, we are always pitted with equally, best dive destinations. When you talk about dive destinations, for example, the Red Sea is very popular here within the region. But of course, when you talk about real, tropical diving, that's where you go to in Southeast Asia, and the Philippines, as we say, is the center of biodiversity. So that has
Mm,
always been our advantage, and we are known for
mm-hmm.
that. From small
Mm-hmm.
reef fish to the biggest fish, the whale shark,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and all the coral and underwater marine resources, because we are the
Uh-huh.
center of biomarine diversity.
Mm-hmm. Sa Pacific, di ba? And going back to the tourism attaché piece, I'm just really curious. So, is it fair to say now you're pretty much responsible for marketing Philippines as a travel destination within the region? So, region being the UK and Northern and Southern Europe. Is that correct? Tama
Yes.
ba?
Well, the main idea is like, think of us like, if we have the Minister of Tourism or the Secretary of Tourism, I am her. Like in our case, we have our
Extension of the
very active
secretary. Yeah.
Secretary Berna Romulo Puyat.
Yeah. Right.
I am her designated representative here. So in effect, I am the mini secretary here, doing all the functions to promote essentially the Philippines as an ideal leisure destination. But on the side, we promote also the viability of the Philippines as a country for tourism related investments, mainly in the form
Mm-hmm.
of infrastructure or resorts and
Mm-hmm.
hotels for that matter.
Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure that the DOT has got very ambitious goals, right? For the industry, for the tourism industry in particular. I was just I just picked up on what you said earlier, yung responsible travel, di ba?
Yes.
So how would you say, would you, first of all, let's define, ano ba yung ibig sabihin? I have an idea of what that is, but I'd like to hear it from you. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng responsible travel? What does that mean? Plus, how do you combine that with with the goal of making Philippines as the go-to travel destination for English people here?
Yeah. Responsible travel essentially involves purposeful travel, to go to a destination, mainly to support sustainable practices, sustainable tourism programs,
Mhm.
inclusive program which empowers the local community to be actively part of the tourism process. So anything that goes with the environmental protection, empowerment of the local community, and then traveling for a cause. For example, we have a big demand for gap year students or youth travelers
Mhm.
who go to the Philippines to take part in the Gawad Kalinga program. So that's just one
Mm.
example. There's also a program for bringing youth travelers to Dumaguete to learn more about
Mhm.
coastal environmental protection. There's also one in
Mm.
Palawan which promotes cultural immersion, to be part with the community and be involved with the community activities, something that will
Mhm.
empower the local people and also the
Mhm.
community as a whole. So anything that is
Mm.
purposeful and contributes to your inner desire to be more
Mhm.
involved and take part in anything important activity which will support these
Mhm.
causes, make up the responsible travel segment. And
Yeah.
especially for sophisticated travelers or advanced countries like the Europeans.
Yes.
Before, for example, in the form of commodity, the countries would just import from other source countries around the world. But now
Mhm.
they say, if you are doing it via forced labor, we will not order from you. So in effect,
Mhm.
in the travel business, the more people are making sure that before they go to destinations, that these destinations are not engaging in any, for example, child labor or
Yep.
anything disastrous with regard to process or systems, with regard
Mhm.
to pollution. So anything that goes with the green policies, with regard to safety of environment, ranks high for responsible travelers.
Okay. So I didn't actually know. So DOT actually facilitates those programs. So the ones that you mentioned that promotes sustainable travel, particularly for the young travelers. May
Yes,
mga programs pa nun sa DOT.
yeah, it's not only why we're going with the trend, but it's an actual policy. It's part of our laws. Remember what
Mm.
happened before to Boracay in 2018
Yes.
because of
Yes. That was like
mass
in the headlines
tourism,
for
yeah,
weeks and months. Yeah.
over
Yeah.
commercialization.
Mm-hmm.
The government closed our most popular destination for 6 months
Yes.
for rehabilitation works. And good thing about it, now we have a proper system in Boracay. We now made sure that people are and the service facilities are compliant to the environmental policies that we set in. For example, there's also like the easement of the shoreline. We cleared
Mm-hmm.
everything now. There are no more
Mm-hmm.
structures
Mm-hmm.
obstructing anything there by the beach, and we don't anymore allow loud parties and drinking and smoking. So um,
Sa ano ba yon sa pier? What is it called?
yeah,
Port
station
2 or
one, two,
Station 2? Yes.
three. Yeah.
Yung Station 2
So
yung quite notorious, 'di ba,
yeah.
for that
So
kind of scene.
yeah. So Boracay has now
Wala na.
re-emerged into a wholesome family destination for couples for retreat.
Mhm.
So yeah. So good thing after we reopen it in 2018, Boracay emerged again as the most favorite or voted as best island in Asia. So that means the more we got the approval of the consumers.
So I think it's quite um, good to know that we actually have policies in place to support the protection of our environment. Because although tourism, would you say, is one of the top industries that we have as a country, um, we still have the responsibility to make sure na we take care, we don't abuse the environment, diba, in the process.
Yeah.
And it's good to know na there are supporting laws to promote and enforce that, diba? And
Mm-hmm.
I think, coming back to the question earlier, I guess that's how DOT balances those objectives of protecting our environment at the same time ensuring that the travel industry within the Philippines is a lucrative remains a lucrative industry. No,
Yeah,
is that fair to say?
that's the mission or the main agenda to preserve our natural and cultural resources for future generation. In the case of Boracay, the form or the makeup of the seas were no longer healthy for the travelers. So after we close it for rehabilitation, although 6 months is rather short, the wildlife started to go back to Boracay, and then the
Mm-hmm.
clarity of the waters became very clear and healthy again for people to swim in. So that was already the alarm bells for us. When we had all this degradation and the environmental stress happening in Boracay, we had to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that we save it so that we apply the same environmental standards to our other destinations. Otherwise, the government will be quick to close any destination for that matter if we see this level of danger or alert with regard to environmental concerns.
Mm-hmm. And is Boracay just that one destination that became like a risk area? Is that fair to say, or
Yeah,
are
Boracay
there other
initially.
destinations that are on the list
Yeah,
na
Boracay initially
kailangang
because
ayusin?
it's the most visited destination for both domestic and international travelers. So
Yeah.
after we sent out warnings to all these service facilities, they had to
Uh-huh.
make sure that they apply the same environmental policy so we don't get too close. And that so far, we learned our lesson the bitter way. So
Mm-hmm.
we can only copy and have more motivation the way we handle Boracay. And as it is now, it's a successful rehabilitation and sustainable tourism program being run there.
Mm-hmm. Have they since started to introduce new regulations to maintain that, to
Well,
maintain
it's
the
more of
the new version, or
it's more
how do
of a
you
more stricter
keep?
implementation of the policies and laws. But now we're very strict about the easement of the shoreline. We have to make sure that we have the government specs for that, and also to make sure that we have the proper sewage system so that we don't throw away
Mm-hmm.
the trash and the pollution back to the sea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And going back to the actual role that tourism attaché, no, when you arrived here in the UK in 2016, have you encountered any like bigger challenges that the department had to overcome when once you started to take on that role, or how was the how was the first year for you as a tourism attaché when you came here?
Well, it was rather easy integration because number one,
Mm.
um, we have always maintained a very efficient and progressive office here, representation here
Mm-hmm.
in London. And then
Mm-hmm.
secondly, well, I have my team, my staff to help me relocate and find my house, and then make sure
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to get
Settle
immediately
in.
my NHS, all these
Yeah.
important residency requirements. But in
Yeah.
terms of market handling, I shared with you that um, 20 years ago, I was already coming back and forth to London for the
Mm-hmm.
world travel markets because before I was
Mm.
deployed for for overseas offices, I was actually the desk officer from the Philippine Convention and Visitors Corporation. That's the marketing arm of the Department of Tourism. So I was handling Europe and North America and the Philippines for 10 years. So I was familiar with the market dynamics here, the
I
marketing and
see.
then the promotional activities. But
Mm-hmm.
overall, I could say that I'm easy to adapt to any situation, especially for marketing. That has been my soul and bread and butter for more than 26 years now. So
Mm-hmm.
easy for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and which brings me into my next question. So,
All
Have
right,
you
all right. If I
known?
if I may add, because this is very important, easy
Oh,
for me because I was coming from the Asian markets. You know, the Chinese and Taiwanese, they're very
yeah.
demanding. The way to do business
Mm,
with them is to establish personal,
mm-hmm.
friendly relation, and it's
Relationships, yeah.
always face to face. You have meetings,
Mm-hmm.
breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then all the
Mm-hmm.
plus all the drinking culture. That's the way to do business. But
You
here
don't
in
like
the
it?
in
Drinking
Europe,
culture? It sounds
it's
like
rather
fun.
very straightforward. As long as you can
Yeah.
assure
Mm-hmm.
them that you know what to commit to them, you know what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing, and the best way to do collaboration, we can do that even without personal meeting. But I do get to meet those who are really have become friends over the years. So this is
Mm-hmm.
what I like about Europe. It's straightforward, and nothing else to, no more beating around the bush, so they say.
Mm-hmm. 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 Actually, I found in the UK. Um, well, actually, yeah, that's true. In Germany, because I used to live in Germany before
Yeah.
I moved to the UK. Yeah, they're really straight to business.
Yes.
They would have some social elements to the business relationship, but it's
Yes.
more like a courtesy. It's not norm.
Yeah.
So they really mean business, and you know what you're gonna get. You know what to expect. There are no surprises, and if there are, mm, hindi siya i-entertain. Parang ganun ba?
Yeah. But
So,
the way to do business also here, especially for the social functions. One
mm,
unifying force is that if you know yourself, if you know how to drink, then you always have a
mhm,
good opportunity to talk to people, in
yeah,
a lighter manner. So
yeah,
that's always
I
the beauty of the travel industry. We always go to social functions, and to add to that the diplomatic functions. So no
yeah.
way but to meet and engage people.
Mhm. And I think I read something about that culture actually, particularly the drinking culture, which is also quite prominent in South Korea, for example. I think um, it builds trust for the people kasi when you're in a social setting, that's where you kind of like let your hair down and show your true self. At least that's how the mentality works there. And pag nagiinuman kayo, dun lumalabas talaga yung totoong katauhan ng tao. And then that's when they know whether they can trust you or not. I think that's
Yeah.
why they have that.
Yeah, lalo
Because
na
it's
sa
really essentially built on
true.
trust, but formed in a different manner. Kasi
Yeah.
dito, of course, relationships are built on trust as well here in the UK, but based on I don't know something else, credibility or 'di ba? Not because nag-inuman kayo or
Well, sa
would you
kanila
say?
kasi,
Would you agree or?
ang satisfaction nila is that they will only know you best if you have that opportunity to be drunk with people, become
Mm.
really friends, and you know them, you know their weaknesses, and
Yeah,
especially
correct.
for,
You're vulnerable. You become
yeah,
vulnerable in front of
yeah.
your
But
business partners, 'di ba?
for me, I would say I could get by, and then normally pag foreigner ka, ikaw normally yung target ng mga kaano mo, ka-deal mo, or mga kaano mo sa business, right? For example, in a
Mhm.
table, kung for
Mm.
example, 9 Chinese against me, they
Mhm.
have to make sure that they would make me drunk. That's
Mm.
only their satisfaction. Otherwise, pag hindi nila ako nalasing, they will attempt again. So, yun yung masaya dyan pag nagtatawanan na.
Might as well
Especially,
get it over and done with
mahilig
the
sila
first round.
magkantahan. Yung karaoke culture is very strong in the
Oh my
Asian
god.
market. So, pagkatas kumain, magkakantahan. Yeah, yung mga lighter and banter moments. Pero,
Yeah.
for them, that's the part of the ritual. And then, once you become
Mm.
really close at a personal level, business
Mhm.
becomes easier.
Yeah, I think that's really in a funny way, that's really how you build trust, 'di
Yeah,
ba?
true.
Within a business setting kasi you are entrusting, something serious to the other person and you're trusting them to deliver, 'di ba? And it's a big thing. It's a big thing.
well,
Kaya I
well,
understand
advice
na
is always keep your aces. Pwede kang mag-enjoy-enjoy, pero wag mong
laging
i-let out lahat. Wag mo ibigay lahat ng alas mo, parang ganun sabi nila. You still keep
tama.
some for the negotiation or business
Just in
dealings. Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
Mm. So, okay, so coming from that, parang coming from that background or that environment, I guess here in the UK, parang easy. Like you said, easy na lang siya kasi wala nang, it's pretty straightforward, di ba? Yung
Yeah.
business dealings dito.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
But this unprecedented thing, this pandemic, we actually get to meet more people,
Yeah,
which
fun
is
enough,
unbelievable.
right?
We
Yeah.
get to
Mm-hmm.
meet people because it's easier now with the access and the technological, the advantage and support. People are just so quick. How about we have a Zoom, or we have even just like a phone call? Nobody would just do it. They want to see you in
They want to see
on the
you. Yeah,
screen, and
correct.
then
Mm-hmm.
with the pandemic happening now within this past year, we've
Mm-hmm.
been very busy attending all the types of online interaction, from
Mm-hmm.
webinars to online training to online
Mm-hmm.
business to business platform. So everything
Mm-hmm.
is very easy, but it's now very demanding also.
And I must say, because obviously, since the pandemic last year, tourism, the industry as a whole, um, really suffered, diba?
Yeah.
Travel and the tourism industry suffered. But I must say, based on what I have observed, the DOT handled it quite well. Kasi di ba yung slogan natin is it's more fun in the Philippines, di ba? And from what I've noticed and observed in terms of how they were communicating and how they were, maintaining that brand, they still managed to obviously take the pandemic seriously, but still keep that, what do you call it, that lightheartedness, yung Pinoy na, ano
Mm-hmm.
ba, lightheartedness in their campaigns. And I've seen a few clips actually ng DOT nung when they started to introduce the safety measures like the social distancing, the face masks, the covers, and yung mga checks, diba? When you travel, they did a video campaign for that. But the way they shot it was like it was almost like a comedy,
Mm-hmm.
a
Yeah.
comedy skit
Yeah.
na kasi hassle siya, 'di ba? Hassle yung magpapa-test ka pa and then you have to wear face mask and
Yeah.
then i-measure ka pa and then you have to register. You have to jump through hoops just to you relax. But the way they portrayed that sa video, it's parang they made it really fun. And I
Yeah.
think I was quite impressed with that kasi parang they really stayed true to the brand. Na it's more fun in the Philippines despite the unfavorable circumstances. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the pandemic is stressful enough, and for us presenting it on the lighter side, just to ease some burden from from all this stress happening around us. But
Mm-hmm.
when the government crafted the "It's More Fun in the Philippines" campaign, it's
Yeah.
actually based on what foreigners or what the other travelers say about the Filipinos, because the Filipinos are the heart and soul of this campaign. And they say, when we ask them, for example, say, what made your trip very satisfying, and they would say, we enjoyed our trip because of the very hospitable and fun-loving Filipinos. So the Filipinos have always been known as very friendly and for their happy disposition. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the lighter side of that, but also the people are very reliable, and the sense of empathy is very high. For example,
Yeah.
during the onset of the lockdown in the Philippines because of the pandemic, our the tourism frontliners, the local government supporters were outside assisting all these stranded foreigners, especially the Europeans. They were the ones who were left behind after we imposed or implemented our lockdown. We had to account for every foreign traveler in the Philippines, and most of them were in the remote areas. So we organized repatriation flights in cooperation with the foreign embassies. That's why they experience that it's not just about being happy, but people are really out there and as concerned, and they were the ones
Mm-hmm.
assisting and making sure that the people were able to catch their flights
Mm-hmm.
to make it back to their respective home country. So that's the essence of It's More Fun. It's not only about having fun moments, but also having the kind of the same type of people who are as empathic and as concerned with their guests. And the mentality of the Filipinos, they're very happy serving or interacting with the foreigners. They always flash their winsome smile every time they
It's a
get to practice,
novelty,
especially
di ba?
their foreign language or their English or
Yeah.
any
Uh,
foreign language. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's funny. And I think the key there is to really find joy even in the not so happiest moments, diba?
Yes.
Like in the in that situation. And I agree with you kasi ganun talaga yung mga Pinoys for some reason. Like just look at every single calamity na nangyayari sa atin. Of course, calamities, diba? We have casualties and people suffer. But after the storm has passed, so to speak, you look at the people who got affected, they still manage to put smiles on their faces, and I experience ko rin yun, and every time I go back kasi every time lately every time I go back home na I get caught in typhoons. So you know what happens, 'di ba, pag bumabagyo, sisira lahat. After that, the people just come out and they just pick up the pieces and clean up, and then some would even dare sing while they were cleaning
Yeah.
up the streets. Yung mga ganun ba?
Yeah.
And you don't see that here. You don't
Yeah.
see that here.
The
Pag
resilient
may
character, you know, the
Yes,
spirit
very
to always
resilient.
bounce back despite
At
the
saka
odds.
yung
Yeah.
isa pa yung not so long ago, just last year, yung Tagaytay, remember? The
Yeah.
volcano eruption, di ba? So, di ba ano sila, nag-viral nga yung mga yung mga pictures dun dito sa Facebook, when they were distributing the relief goods, primarily clothing, di ba?
Yeah.
Ang ginawa ng mga, have you seen it? Ang
Yeah.
ginawa, ano yung they made a fashion show out of the whole thing,
Yeah.
di ba? Kasi some donated random stuff na like made you think na ano to? It's like sinong susuot ng mga apron, yung mga weird stuff ba? But they made the fashion show out of it, and parang you don't find that. I have not seen that here, to be honest. Dito sa
Yeah.
Europe, dito sa UK, it's just I think I would say very unique to Filipinos. Yung basta makulit sila in a fun way. I can't describe it, but you know
Yeah.
what I mean, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-mm. So I guess that's why I guess we are the tawag doon, key factors in that.
Always
If it's more fun in
smiling,
the
you know.
Philippines,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And okay nga pala. So have you always known that you wanted to work in the travel industry, or how did you find your way? Or how did what path led you there? Uh, Pag-isipin mo, I like this. I'm gonna stick around and I'll be good at what I do. So travel in particular.
Yeah. Well, everyone loves traveling, but for me, it was like I don't know if it's a late transition already. I was in UP then, the University of the Philippines, having my general courses. So through college, I was just having an easy time, not really studying. You know, I was just there, you know, enjoying the company of friends. So when I was reaching my second year, I was doing arts and letters. So I said maybe I heard about the Asian Institute of Tourism, which is the premier school of for tourism, not only in the Philippines then, but also in Asia. So I said I might as well try switching my course. You know, moving to the Asian Institute of Tourism, and the other motivation because
What was your first
the
major
most
though when
beautiful
you?
girls in campus were
Uh,
in AIT because it's a travel
Ayun.
industry. So yeah, so that was my my initial path to embracing this career. So true enough, I graduated from the UP Asian Institute of Tourism, and actively because I was every part of the school's tourism activities. I was very active with the extracurricular. You know, I
Mm.
started as a college representative, and then after a year after that, I was elected as vice chairman of the student council. And for
Mm-hmm.
my graduation year, for my final year, I serve as the chairman of the UPAAT student council. So that really molded me to be part of the tourism force and become really in tune with all the tourism agenda during my school days. So after I graduated, I said to myself, this would be the career that I would establish myself
Mm-hmm.
in terms of my professional growth. So that was
Mm-hmm.
my start. And then to add to that, after I graduated, I was fortunate to work for special projects under the Department of Tourism,
Oh, so you
handling.
worked straight away for DOT right after after university.
Yeah, well, I had 1 year
Mm-hmm.
of enjoying my graduation,
Your
but
gap
after that,
year, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I went to work for special project for a year, handling
Mm.
the what there was an Asian visit ASEAN year. There was a program where Philippines was hosting the ASEAN programs for the visit ASEAN year. So I
Mm-hmm.
was in that special project for a year, And then after that, I was recruited right away to work as a manager for Manila Pavilion Hotel,
Yeah,
handling
very prestigious.
tour
Yeah.
groups. So after
Mm-hmm.
working in the hotel business for 1.5 years, I said I would go back to the Department of Tourism and held my ground and stayed with this government service for the past 26 years now.
Wow. Okay. 26 years. Wow,
Yes.
that's a really decent amount of time.
That's
Um,
really my bread and butter, and my the heart and soul of my career is really I they say I breathe tourism. I live and breathe tourism.
yeah,
Yeah.
you bleed
Yeah.
if they were ever to cut you in half, you would be bleeding.
Yeah,
Tourism
yeah,
siguro,
yeah,
no?
yeah. I bet, yeah.
Yeah. But what about you though? Obviously, being an expert within the industry, how do you travel on a personal level? How do you travel, and do you have ano yung parang favorite? Is it? I don't think that's fair question to ask us. It's hard to pick just one favorite, but
Yeah.
maybe top three, top
Well,
three
first
na travel spots that you've been.
yeah, the introduction to travel, I knew that I was in the right industry with regard to traveling as part of your work and as part of leisure, because sometimes when you travel, even when you attend business meetings, part of that will always be your personal satisfaction being able to travel to, especially to a nice place anywhere in Europe.
Mm,
But for me, when I made it to the Department of Tourism, I said the first travel that I would make, because would you believe I only got to travel internationally when I was already working, as in the
mm-hmm.
many case of all the how do you call that, the middle income earning
The middle
families.
class,
So
yeah,
I said,
families, yeah.
before I get to officially travel, I would dedicate my personal resources, my salary, my own ipon, to be able to travel. So I said, okay, I'll do this on my own to experience it the way you cherish, spending and saving your money
Mhm.
for this wonderful experience. So I
Yeah.
first made it to Hong Kong and Macau. So I said, now that
Mhm.
I
Yan yung
know how to do
popular
it,
parang
yeah,
first destination, 'di
yeah,
ba, sa mga
always the
Filipinos, yung
first
first Hong
destination for
Kong. Dali lang
Filipinos.
kasi.
Yeah. So
Very
I said,
easy,
okay,
yeah.
that was
Mm.
the experience, and I never stopped. From then, I was able to travel to, I don't know, maybe just 40 countries to date. But
Just
I
40 countries lang?
yeah,
Are you saying just?
but I enjoyed most, apart from those countries where I was posted, because that means living and absorbing the culture.
Yeah.
I also enjoyed going to Italy for I had my master's in tourism in Italy, so I stayed
Mhm.
there for a year in Rome.
Mm.
So that would probably be my highlight in terms of traveling and experiencing the lifestyle, the local culture. And I did travel around Italy, but for professional work, um, I also value traveling to those countries that I am seldom going to, because in my work I always go to Scandinavia, the Nordic countries, Italy, Spain, all over UK and Ireland. But
Mhm.
I seldom go to the likes of Greece, Thessalonica. I enjoyed going there, and also in Baku, Azerbaijan. So these are the exotic countries, and I've been
Azerbaijan.
to South Africa also, in
Yeah.
yeah, and also in um, in India. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
otherwise, US, all over US and Canada. So yeah, but otherwise, the best experience is traveling with family. So that means my
Yeah, of
leisure
course.
time. So we
Mhm.
love
Mhm.
traveling as a family, and so far we
Yeah.
enjoyed most going to Croatia and Dubai. So that's
Croatia.
just it. We're part of this travel business, so no other way but to travel, even for our family time. Our
Yeah.
yeah, I
Mhm.
say me, or our personal or family time. The best experience is traveling together. Yeah. Even around
Mhm.
UK, yeah, we enjoy going to Folkestone in Kent for our
Yes.
quick
Mhm.
beach getaway. Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to just get to. Sa Kent,
Yeah.
it's what, 2, 3 hours
Yes,
max.
yes, yes.
Need not. I don't think it's quite three. 2.5 hours, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
yeah, and nasa beach ka na because you have to remember we are on an island as well, 'di ba? So
Yes.
syempre may beaches din sila dito, but nothing compared to what we
Compared to,
have, I
yeah,
must say.
true.
Yeah, we have a lot of beaches, but my sand, yeah, they must have sand beaches somewhere, but I don't know. I'm not impressed.
Yeah, yeah.
Ours is still the best. Yeah.
Yeah, we've always been winning all these best islands, best beach destinations from all the most elite travel publications. So that's our claim to fame. The likes of Boracay, now Siargao is one of the top destinations for Asia. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
including Bohol, Palawan, Cebu,
Yeah. Yeah.
Caramoan. Caramoan is the place where
Kalamoan, Sumare.
they hold all these global TV reality show, the Survivor series. From France, from
Where's that?
US, from
Karamoan.
Scandinavia, in Bicol region. That's where they hold
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
idea of
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
marooned in an island and then surviving.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
that
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
where all these global TV reality shows are being filmed. And in fact, as we speak,
Doon sila sa
we made
Karamoan.
special arrangements. Gave exemption to a group of the whole production crew and cast of the Survivor TV Israel. They are now filming in Karamoan in the Bicol region.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I must have seen like one or two episodes, but
Yeah,
I know the concept of the show.
yeah, hmm,
So doon lang pala sila sa Bicol nagsho-shoot.
yeah. They say they normally
Okay.
before at the onset of the film they said it's a secret location, but of course after they
Oh,
aired it, everyone would be asking where it was filmed. So now it's now
and then
no
it
longer a
became like
global
a
secret again.
destination.
Yeah, yeah, it's Karamoan.
Ah.
Yeah,
Yeah, may ganun talaga sometimes, if you become like a set for a show, it almost always becomes a tourist destination. Like sa New Zealand din, 'di ba? After
yeah,
Lord of the Rings, for example,
yeah,
biglang,
yeah.
I
True.
mean, it's always been like a popular destination, but more prominent after nung Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
Tapos, meron pa yung mga iba na sa Game of Thrones, if you're familiar with
yeah,
the show, sinusundan talaga nila yung mga locations ng Game of Thrones sa Croatia, Italy, di ba?
yeah. Kahit
Yeah.
nga yung The Beach na yung famous movie
Kay
ni
Dicap
Leonardo DiCaprio,
oo.
you know, that's actually inspired by the writer's story in Palawan, El Nido, Palawan. But it was filmed in
Hmm,
Thailand, but the story is about El
Thailand,
Nido,
yeah.
Palawan. But otherwise, Born Identity of late was
Yes.
filmed also in the Philippines. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So obviously after we are still in a pandemic,
yeah,
but hopefully after this all passes, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on the future of travel.
yeah,
After parang kasi the pandemic was like a wake up call to humanity, 'di ba? Would you say?
yeah,
Na parang ano, this is what happens when you abuse yung your environment or yeah, kasi you've seen the pictures for sure, yung before and after, yung before pandemic and after, before ng pandemic and during the pandemic when everyone was quarantined and wala nang tao sa Metro Manila, you can all
yeah,
of a sudden see the Sierra del Madre range, yung mountain
yeah,
range, di ba, sa Antipolo. It became visible and many other cities then biglang nagka-skyline na ulit sila whereas
yeah.
usually on any given day it's fog, puro siya may smog siya. So parang naging wake up call na rin yan for us na we have to take care of our environment, diba? But after that, where do you think what do you think would be the future? What do you think the future of travel will look like?
Well, I'd like to reassure everyone that we've been there before, but to a lesser extent, the SARS. But obviously, this pandemic is unprecedented. And one good thing is that um, the countries all over the world are not remaining at a standstill. Like the greatest minds have now produced the vaccination. So when all the countries are able to achieve the mass vaccination or the herd immunity, then that would signal the restart of even before that. When the Brits were asked, they were wanting to travel despite the availability of a vaccine. That's the character of the
That they were
Europeans.
that desperate
Travel is
to
a
travel.
necessity.
Yeah.
So for me, definitely the new term is new normal. People will now
Yes,
be
I've heard
very
that a lot.
conscious about the safety, and protection measures in the destination with regard to COVID. And
Yeah.
one good thing is that the international community is planning already for the implementation of a vaccine pass. In fact, it was already announced in the news that UK is open to being part of the system wherein people will subscribe to a system, an app, wherein you are asked, for example, your vaccination details so that you'll be allowed to board the flight going to
Mhm.
destinations which also follow the same system. So that's
Mhm.
a digital a health pass or a vaccine passport. That's one. And then obviously the service facilities are heavy in preparing their procedures, their service facilities to be compliant with the global standard with regard to the safety protocols. So everyone
Yep.
is following that, and then I guess people, because of this, we need to adapt. People are now looking for remote holidays, away from mass
Remote.
tourism, with social distancing. People now
Yeah.
value more than ever the the value of being
The quiet.
responsible, being part of this force that that is one with nature, that is supporting the empowerment of local community, purposeful tourism. That's now the new demands now as a result of this pandemic. So obviously also technology driven, people subscribe now to app. We have our own tracing system here, very advanced. I always share that
Mhm.
with my colleagues in the head office that our own NHS system is actually able to alert you if there's any infected person within your radius. So that's also one
Yep.
thing. And everywhere you go, you present your app to be able to avail of the services. So these are just some of the new realities when we fully start global travel. But obviously people are now more concerned about the
Mhm.
effects that we have on the environment, so which is good and bad. As you mentioned, during this 1 year lull, at least our environment is able to breathe back again,
Recover.
all
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Mm.
wildlife's going back, and it's giving
She got to
the
have a
much
break. Yeah.
needed break, rehabilitation break
Mhm.
for our
Mhm.
nature. So which is good and bad, yeah, also,
Yeah.
yeah, for us.
You mentioned something very interesting there, and I think that's a typical, within a crisis, there's always an opportunity, no? Because although the pandemic was catastrophical for many, particularly not just for the people who got affected, but also for the livelihoods of so many, including the ones within the travel industry. You mentioned now because of the pandemic, it actually inspired others to be a bit to engage more in sustainable travel, which is an opportunity on its own, diba? So although may crisis, pero meron something good came out of it in a way kasi it opened other people's um, minds into the other side of travel and
True.
actually starting to become more conscious about their behaviors, how they're consuming in general, right?
Yeah.
The footprint
And
that they leave behind and how they're affecting the country that they're actually
yeah,
visiting. So opportunity siya kasi it could
yeah,
raise awareness for something positive, di ba?
yeah. And now there's also the new trend now. People go for slow travel. That means you absorb everything slowly, and then really imbibing the culture, the local people, so there's a
Mm-hmm.
tendency to really go slow and really appreciate just the nature, the people around you, learn from them. It's like your downtime, me time when
Correct.
you go out there.
Correct.
And then yeah. And also, like I said, technological support, like people are now going on workation, as long as they have the access of internet,
Workation. Ano
instead of just
yun?
being
It's a new term.
quarantined for a long time. They are fed up with being quarantined for a long time, so when they go out, they want to bring their laptop, still work as long as with good connection, but with you, with the forest as your front or backdrop, or in a
Mm-hmm.
quiet location with the gentle breeze of the sea, something like that. So
Mm-hmm.
imagine that for your workplace, but
Yeah.
working with internet connection. Yeah.
Like yung mga ganyan, yung mga puno pero like totoong forest, 'di ba?
Yeah. True, true,
Tinitingnan
true.
mo while you're working. I think yeah, that would be
Yeah.
very relaxing. Yeah,
Yeah.
workation. Yun, bagong trend na naman, 'di ba? Kasi
Yeah.
again, the pandemic kind of like made so many companies realize na remote working actually can work.
Yeah.
Provided of course you have the right people and you have the right setup in terms of tech tools, yeah. Pero
Yeah.
with all the basics covered, you can pretty much work from anywhere. Kailangan mo
Yeah.
lang talaga is yung workstation mo, yung laptop, and decent internet. That's it.
Yeah.
So,
Saka you can
yeah.
add to that also yung level ng empathy ng tao now is now greater, you know. You are now concerned because, for example, if
True.
you're coughing, you don't want to infect other people, you need to maintain social distance. And, you know, this is
Mm-hmm.
now the result of this. People are now just more aware of
Mm-hmm.
your
Each
neighbors, you know,
other.
of the people around
Mm-hmm.
you, and you have to be more conscientious, you know, be, you know, have a sense of empathy for others. Yeah,
Correct, correct.
which is good.
Na, correct, na parang they, instead na biglang nagre-react na lang sila, they try
Yeah,
to understand and act with kindness first, 'di ba? Kasi you don't know kung may pinagdadaanan yung tao kaya siya
yeah.
nagaganon, 'di ba? And I think that became a bit more prevalent with others. I noticed that with my
Saka yung
colleagues
ano,
as
yung
well.
Britons
Biglang
kasi,
bu
di ba
yeah.
stubborn ng mga Brits? They don't want to be confined, you know. For them, it's encroaching on their civil liberties, you know. That not
Yes.
doesn't want being commanded, you know, to wear something. So like this now, it's about following the system, which is everyone because the threat is real. When you know somebody, and
Mm,
as in our case, we know close to us, we know some people who are really dying because of this pandemic. Then you become more aware, and especially now, which is good. People now follow a sense of the system, you know, following rules and regulations. Yeah,
yeah, and yeah, wag na magpasaway kasi we're talking about life and death here.
yeah,
Hindi
true.
siya optional. Hindi na
Yeah,
siya optional, it's mandatory na. Because it's not even just about you anymore, it's about others as well.
yes,
Kasi you don't
yes.
know if you're posing a risk. You know, there
Yeah,
are
true.
people who are ang tawag doon, yung walang symptomatic, 'di ba?
Asymptomatically. Yeah, true.
Who knows? They might be carrying it tapos you don't know. So, yeah, yun. I agree with what you said there. Yeah. Um, so let's go back to the UK naman. So, what have you got planned? What have you got planned for the UK market and the Northern Southern Europe market?
We are what we call in a waiting stage, you know, it's like a dreaming stage. People are not able to travel yet, but people are searching for travel tips, you know, for destination information. And we are here to maintain our market visibility. And in fact, according to market reports and surveys, the Brits now are planning ahead. You know, they are already looking forward to traveling again, especially this summer. Everyone is waiting for the May 17, you know, easing of travel restrictions for them to be able to travel again. But the biggest concern is the quarantine requirement. So for us now, Philippines is still closed. We are just starting gradually our domestic travel. You know, our main destinations like Baguio, Ilocos
Yep.
provinces, Boracay, Palawan, Siargao, Bohol have already opened up. But of course, we maintain our strict safety protocols. So we have to make sure that we retain our market visibility, you know, so that people
Mm,
still continue to see positive reinforcements or images about
mhm,
Philippines, so that when
mhm,
they do get to travel again, we will come as a top of mind
mhm.
destination for the Brits. And the way to reach now the consumers, we are now doing heavily digital marketing as part of our soft marketing
I noticed. Yeah, I
yeah,
noticed.
campaign.
Yeah.
So
Mhm,
across all product matching with regard to the consumers, we focus much on what we call now the responsible travel, and also
mhm,
our main features, mainly beach experience, the beach holidays, health and wellness, scuba diving. We're big in scuba diving, cultural immersion, and
mhm.
also city breaks or the metropolitan experience, and the Philippine food, which is always a big part of our
Yeah.
marketing messaging. So that's what we're doing now. In terms of the trade partnerships, we continue to do our online engagements, the B2B,
Mm-hmm.
business to business platforms. And the past, just a day just yesterday or the other day before that, we were in B2B engagements with the Pacific Asia Travel Association UK chapter. So we dealt with
Mm-hmm.
the best British outbound tour operators to the region, Southeast Asia and Philippines. So preparing, because otherwise it takes also a gestation, it takes 6 months to 1 year to prepare again all the products for the winter campaign.
Yeah,
Normally
yeah.
they travel during winter season, go to Southeast Asia to
Yes.
escape the cold
Get
here, cold
yeah, escape the
weather,
cold, yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
enjoy the tropical paradise in the Philippines. So, in other words, we keep our market visibility, continue to appeal to the consumers, and also to maintain relations with the trade partners and media supporters, so that when we fully reopen, it's easy to just switch on. But
Mm-hmm.
our motivation is that before this pandemic in 2019, actually the Philippines had the second best growth rate in terms of the British travel to the Philippines, to Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
next only to Vietnam. The rest were in the red or had flat growth rate because of the prolonged effects of Brexit, and compounded further by
Ah,
the pandemic. But we were
right.
doing very well. So, people will not forget about that. And as we also handle the other markets, for example, the Spanish travel to Southeast Asia, Philippines ranks first. And in terms of Italian travel to Southeast Asia, Philippines ranks second. So we are high in the
Top
destination
five at least,
preferences.
no? Would you say?
Yes, of the
At least nasa
consumers.
top
And
five tayo.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
so we continue to do that. And as you say, if our marketing strategies work, no need to change, but to continue to build up on that. But
Mm-hmm.
again, focus on the digital marketing platforms. And
Yeah.
we,
Yeah.
we we deal. You are yourself is a practitioner. So just imagine the way we do things. For example, in terms of the the experience, we use culture trip to magnify, all the positive experiences going in terms of Europeans travel to the Philippines. In terms of
Mm-hmm.
actual platform, booking platform, we deal, for example, with Expedia, and Philippines emerges the most search destination for Brits going to Southeast Asia. Philippines was the number one most searched destination. So uh, more, we deal with eDreams, all these big brands, Travelzoo,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
TripAdvisor,
Yep. Yep.
Hotels.com. Everywhere
Yep.
you will see Philippines, even with the publications, Condé Nast, Nat Geo, Mayfair,
Mm-hmm.
Wanderlust. Yeah, yeah,
So the alliances that you strengthen have primarily started to focus more on the digital platforms talaga, no?
yes.
Since
And
the
also,
pandemic.
we no way, but we need to work with our Filipino publications. And we work
Yeah.
closely with them because we also bank on the presence of more than 200,000 progressive Filipino British here in the United Kingdom. And they are
Yeah.
very active
Yeah.
travelers. They know Philippines very well. They have strong affinity, and they still,
Mm-hmm.
you know, even invite their colleagues to travel with them to the Philippines. So this
Mm,
is also one
yeah.
of our focal markets here in the United Kingdom, and even in Spain and Italy, where we have big and strong Filipino community presence. Yeah,
Yeah, that's right. Because in a way, everyone is a promoter
yeah,
for the Philippines as a travel destination because you can really talk firsthand about your experience and share that with friends. And I do the same as well with my colleagues at work. I talk about, you know, the highlights of of where to go there. And yeah, in a in a funny way, lahat tayo, we work for the DOT as soon as we start
yeah,
talking about the
yeah.
Philippines as a travel destination, diba?
Yeah, but
Mm,
here in Europe and even in the United Kingdom, we are one country team, and we work
mm-hmm.
closely with the Philippine Embassy, which sets all the
Yeah,
policies with regard to economic engagements, including
yeah.
tourism, and also the welfare and attention to the Filipino nationals in the UK and Europe. So we work as one team, and very progressive team with the Philippine Embassy, led
Mhm.
by Ambassador Lagdameo. So we work hand in hand, especially our engagements with the Filipino community. I'm always everywhere with the Batangueño group, Cavite group, and
Yeah.
the Bicolano group. All
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
special functions we
Yeah.
attend, and also the
We
very
like we
strong
love to party. Mhm.
Filipino nurses here in the UK. As I mentioned to
Ah.
you, they are our natural travel ambassadors because they
Mhm.
provide care,
Yeah.
and their
Yeah.
clients or their patients, they're very, direct, close
Uh-huh.
relations with them. So they believe them when they tell them that Philippines is such a beautiful country with a very, hospitable people. So
Yeah,
in fact,
because they
some of them they
experience
travel
it
together.
through
Yeah.
their care,
Yes.
diba? They experience it
Yes.
through their care.
Yeah.
And there's already trust built with the health workers. So
Yeah.
yeah, like promotion.
Yeah.
They are promoters,
Yeah,
definitely
I
for
mentioned to you,
tourism.
we're excited
Mm.
because once UK reopens its barriers again for
Yeah.
international travel, we are doing a series of online activations. And I mentioned to you, since
Ano
VFR,
yun?
or Visit for Friends and Relatives, or the Filipino community, is a big
Mm.
market base for us. We are running some exciting programs. Like for example, we're doing a singing contest for
Siyempre,
Filipino
of
health
course.
frontliners. So imagine,
Yeah.
take a break from all your very stressful roles, and now
Mm.
you join our competition with free trip to the Philippines as the big
Oh my
prize.
God.
So
Pwede
we
bang
have
masali
this, and
dyan?
also we have a travel photo contest wherein they show their most memorable photo traveling to
Mhm.
a special destination Philippines together with their British friend,
Mhm.
relative, or friends and extended relatives and colleagues.
Yeah.
So the idea
Mm.
is that we promote to our sphere of influence, from our patients
Mhm.
in the hospitals to our work colleagues to our
To our British
employers.
friends, yeah.
Since,
Uh-huh.
as we say, they are the natural best travel ambassadors for the Philippines. Yeah.
Mhm. So exciting.
And also,
Exciting
as
naman.
I mentioned, the Philippine Gourmet promo, we'll have some online food demonstration. Invite some influencers to
Mhm.
try doing a Filipino
Dem
dish. And
Mhm.
we do this in partnership also with our Filipino restaurants here
Yeah.
in the UK.
We
We
have
work closely
we have
with
a lot.
Romulo Cafe and also Jollibee for our fast food
Yes,
comfort.
of course.
Yeah.
Yes, Jollibee. Everybody loves Jollibee. And of course, yeah, Romulo Cafe. Actually, yeah, tried there
Mama Sons
recently,
is
just
also
tried
good,
there.
for halo-halo and
Yeah,
ice cream.
yeah,
I love
yeah.
Mama
Dirty
Sons.
ice cream. They
Love it.
popularized yung dirty ice cream, which,
Yeah.
di ba, hindi naman siya masyado sikat sa Philippines before, but dito,
Mm.
they really, they really improved that image. Well, actually, I think it's a totally new concept here anyway. Pero sa atin, pag dirty ice cream, I wasn't allowed. For example, growing up,
Yeah, yeah.
eating dirty, kasi nga dirty eh. Pero I
Yeah.
think they added like a very creative spin to it, and they're awesome. They're doing really well. Daming creative na creations within the dirty ice cream piece lang. Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
madami tayong ganon. Yeah, so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
True.
really getting excited just talking about it. Can't wait for that all to take place already.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, last question for you, Gerry. As a veteran within the travel industry, and obviously you are an expert um, with travel and tourism, what would be your advice for people who would like to pursue a career within tourism? Kasi madami namang branches yan, di ba? You can have
Yes.
many different versions within the industry. What would be your tips and your pointers for someone who wants to explore that kind of career within travel?
Well, basically, you should be a people person. You should love engaging and talking and yeah, dealing with people, because this is a social activity, especially for tourism. But like you said, there are different facets to tourism. The tourism is the whole travel and tourism is the whole industry, but which are actually divided into different service components. We have for the accommodations, the hotel and resort,
Mm.
industry. We have the transportation, the aviation and airlines. The other support facilities like the theme parks, so transportation. So there are many, and as long as you love interacting with people, then tourism business is for you. But of course, there's always the room for being more technical. Learn more about marketing. The digital marketing,
Yeah.
a new
Yeah.
platform, and also the deeper level of diplomatic responsibility, especially when you deal with the country NTOs, the National Tourism Offices. Because
Mm-hmm.
we always say that Philippines is part of the economic pillars of the government, and it's true. We are like 13% of the country's employment source, about 5.8 million, and a
Wow.
big part
Okay.
of the country's GDP. And in fact, tourism is one of the biggest forex generators, together with the trade and investments and the BPOs and the overseas Filipino remittances. But otherwise, tourism ranks high in terms of its forex generation. So
Mm-hmm.
this is very important because if it's an important part of your economic agenda, then it should be supported and funded proportionately. And sadly, the tourism industry in the Philippines as a portfolio, as a cabinet portfolio, has one of the lowest budgets. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that is the learning here for future leaders that, if that is one of your selling products, then the more you should support it, because it's giving
Mm-hmm.
you direct revenues, in the form
Correct.
of
Correct.
tourist expenditure. So that is the big disconnect. And then, of course, for tourism to thrive, we should have the right policies, especially the environmental
Mm-hmm.
protection, because without the
Definitely.
environment, there's no activity to work on.
Correct.
So,
There's nowhere to
um,
go. There's nowhere to visit kung wala yung
yeah,
environment.
but
Diba?
otherwise, it's a fun and very fulfilling profession. And who doesn't want traveling and meeting new people, learning new, culture, the practices, the lifestyle, and yeah, just seeing new places. As you say, as they say, as what Saint Augustine quoted. Traveling is like a book. If you don't travel, you only get to read one page. So it's like, you have the book of life. What do you generate? What do you add to your life to make it more fulfilling? You know, the essence of your soul. So traveling is should be one part of that, and interacting
Correct.
with people. Yeah.
Yeah. There's something about traveling that you just can't read it from a book. You can't watch it from a movie. You can't listen to enough stories to actually understand, or it's different to experiencing it firsthand, diba? And
Yeah.
it does something to your mind and to your soul as well. It if anything, it broadens your horizons, and you come back hopefully a better person, diba?
Yeah.
Kasi
True.
you get
Yeah.
to appreciate not just the beauty of Mother Earth, but also other people, their mentality, their culture,
True.
and it
Very true.
just adds to
Yeah.
your understanding of you know other cultures and other people, diba?
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah,
true.
I
As
think
they
it's
say, you know more yourself by knowing other people.
yeah, that's true. See, ano yun na? I know that. Si Confucius pa yun. I think he said that. Anyway, um, would you believe that we've been chatting for over an hour now, Gerry? And I try to keep it to an hour, but sometimes towards the 45th minute, talagang I really get into it, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Enjoying this
hard. It's hard to.
conversation, exchange of
I'm enjoying
yeah, yeah.
this, just shooting the breeze kind of thing. Really enjoying these conversations, but we have to. Sad to say, we have to wrap up.
Yes.
But thank you very much for your time. I really enjoyed the stories that you shared about the the work that you have to do as a tourism attaché, including building relationships with others, particularly within the Asian region, diba?
Yes.
It might not seem like work at first glance, pero it is kasi diba? It looks like fun. It's a social setting, but it's actually businesses are made within that social setting. It's just a necessity, no. So it was really interesting to hear that story, and I'm also quite impressed with and I wasn't even aware of that, na may mga sustainability programs pala tayo na
Yes.
pinopromote ng DOT, particularly encouraging young travelers to participate. I really like that. Encouraging travel and sustainable travel. Really like that, and I like how again I learned so much today na may policies pala talaga to actually to protect our resources, and that supports the sustainable travel initiative ng DOT, no? So thanks for sharing that. Really,
Yeah, pleasure. Yeah.
may natutunan ako today. And of course, we had a bit of sneak peek and previews sa mga campaign or sa mga future plans ng DOT dito sa London, no? For the next coming months when everything opens back up again. So excited na ako for that. Really looking forward to that. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
But before I let you go, may bayad yung pag nag-guest ka dito sa
Mhm.
Philcom Features. I charge our guests with something before I let them go, and that is they need to give me a hugot line. So
Yeah.
Gerry, do you have one for me? My hugot line, come up for me,
Yeah.
please.
First, it's such a pleasure to join you today in our conversation to promote, not only to tell about myself, but to promote our tourism programs. I don't have
Yeah,
a very witty hugot line, but this much I'd like to say because, our kababayans here in the UK, as I mentioned again and again, have a very important role to play because, like we said, they are natural travel ambassadors for the Philippines, but also they are the first source of information, either information to positively reinforce their British friends to believe more in the Philippines, or a negative source of information that propagates, all this negative news. So first,
yeah,
I appeal
both.
to
Yeah, they could.
to our kababayan to know more about the Philippines. We have a website. It's more fun in the Philippines.co.uk for them to get more, download, know more about information. So that's only then when you're armed with the right information, you are able to share it with others. And then finally, my message is that when we invite people to travel to the Philippines, including our kababayan here, they're not only plain leisure travelers. In fact, when they go to the Philippines, they become part of our business process. They become
Hmm,
our travel, trade, and industry partners because when they travel to the Philippines, they are part of the contribution that to the industry which provides livelihood opportunities and jobs to our kababayans back in the Philippines. So, as I always say, you travel to the Philippines, you are not only a leisure visitor but also an enabler and a real part of our economic process to give more opportunities for our people in the form of job and also cultural pride. So there's only one country that we have. Let's be proud of it. Stop spreading negative news. When we talk
yes.
about Philippines, that's our
There's enough of that
motherland.
going
We are
around.
blessed with
There's enough.
the best type of natural assets. We've been winning all these number one, most voted best islands in the country in the world. Let's take advantage of that, and we also draw strength from our being united here. So mabuhay ang
Mhm.
Pilipinas at mabuhay ang Philippine tourism.
Yes, yeah, definitely agree. Thank you so much,
Thank
Jerry.
you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
too. Yeah,
Take
pleasure.
care.
Yeah,
Ingat.
yeah. All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Right.
Ingat. Salamat. Keep in
Yeah.
touch.